Hi everyone! This video is brought to you by my wonderful supporters over on Patreon. This was a series that I offered in 2020, and I've condensed it for you here now on YouTube. Enjoy! So I'm going to take you guys along the process from start to finish. Typically I have an order in which I do these kinds of projects, but because I had somebody visiting, I kind of skipped ahead and did my coffee dyeing. Normally what I do is I gather all of the things that I think I'm going to use in my project first, and then I move on to collecting the pages and doing the coffee dyeing. So that's the only difference here in this process. So this is the cover that I have picked out, and immediately after I gut a hardback book like this, I reinforce the spine. Just because when a book has been bound for so many years and opened and closed, this part here of the spine gets weak. This is the Spring Botanic from Stamperia, and I was looking over some of the images in here, and that's going to be like perfect to go in there. So I haven't decided which of these cards I'm going to use. Just gorgeous. So I was looking through my little linens, and I have this really cute oval tablecloth, I'm assuming is what this is. And I was thinking maybe as an accent piece, I could add it to the cover before putting a closure on, just as an extra piece, because this is a journal I'm going to be selling. So I just pulled that out because I really like that. I also pulled out this vintage pink floral, and it's like I don't know, what do you call this? This sheer stuff. So this is a possibility for maybe just cutting up and using inside. I know, I hate cutting these up, but the fact that I still have it and that I've had it for years tells me that I really should do something with it. I mean, how pretty is that? And then there was this one here in my stash too, so I was thinking that this is a possibility as well as an accent piece. This one too. This is beautiful. Yeah, that's really nice also. So these are all like maybes. And then this is the paper for the inside of the cover, right, to go in there, like that. And I picked this musical kind of looking paper because this one is called Floral Symphony, so, you know, the musical side of things. And then as I was going through all my vintage envelopes, this one I noticed had this gorgeous leaf pattern on the inside of it in a green. So I've added that to my pile. And then I've added a few of the small book pages from those little Observers books. And then I have these little sari appliques. They're like beaded little things, and so I have them in green and pink. And then this big one, there's a couple more there. This is a bigger one that hasn't been cut up yet, which I think is just too beautiful to cut up. Let me see if I can lay it out on my hand for you so that you can see the detail. I'm just blown away by this kind of stuff. Okay, so this one here, I don't know, I really have to find a way to use that. It's just stunning. And also I did a bit of skimming through the story of Princess Zara, and it's a love story. She's a Russian princess. She falls in love with an American businessman, and they are separated by the ocean, and they are trying to get back together. I just went looking through my old jewelry. So I've got these roses. This is a brooch. So that might look nice on the cover, on the closure. There's this flower as well. This is a clip-on earring. This is a broken watch, so that might make a nice charm piece. And then I have a locket, so I could put something in there. And because it's a love story, maybe I could have the gentleman's photo in there or something. These are the pages that I took out of the text block. So this is just the very front, and it's dated up there, 1911. Some of the images. And then at the back of these old books, they have these great text pages. So I took these out. Not sure if I could use them in this one or not, but something else that's going to go into this journal for sure are some of my pressed plants. All kinds of pressed stuff. So I've got pressed leaves. These are like from a rose bush. So are these. They're just a little bit bigger, from a different kind of rose. Smaller one there. This is from a 9-bark shrub. Here's my fuchsia. Can't remember what this one's called. A stilby, I think. It's from the plant. These tiny little keys from a maple tree. And I just pulled things that have like the pink and green colors to them. This was the start of a new fuchsia, I think, or maybe it was the end of it. From the cranesbill geranium type plant. This is a rose petal. Columbine, tiny little pink columbine. I think this was just from my peony plant. And this I had already run through the laminating machine, but it's also from my astilbe plants. And I was just trying things out. I stitched through the plastic to see how my machine would react, and it did just fine. So that might make the cut. And I've got all kinds of pressed flowers in here that I've just never used yet from last year, so it's time to use them. So these are from a honeysuckle vine. I think I should try something with those. These are from my burning bush, and there's still the little pods at the top there. Just different, what are these? Oh, these are mums. Couple more fuchsia blooms, couple more mums. And then these tiny things turned out to be such a gorgeous color once they're pressed. And they're from a bush that I have at the front of the house. Potentilla. And it's a very dense shrub. And it gets all of these tiny flowers at the end of the summer. So I made sure to collect a few. These postcards I have been collecting to use the back. So on this side I can do like a collage of some sort, or I just glue it down. And I have an idea for maybe using these as tuck spots in the journal. So this is just the pile. I haven't broken down which ones I like more, but for now that's good. And then these are the other envelopes. I showed you the one that had the floral print on the inside. These are just plain on the inside, but I thought maybe the color of the stamp would work in this journal. So this is just the pile I pulled out for now, and I can decide later once I have a better idea of where I'm going with these. I'll pick out what I like most. And these are just the back of some larger ones because I used the front to make pockets in other journals. So this is just nice scrappy kind of paper that I can use. And then I pulled out some of my postage stamps, so I have some in here that are just organized by category. So I've got a little envelope of flowers, I've got birds, I've got butterflies in here. This is something that I just pulled out of the text block, and it's at the beginning of the book. The theme: two shall be born the whole wide world apart, and speak in different tongues, and have no thought each of the other's being, and no heed. And these o'er unknown seas to unknown lands shall cross, escaping wreck, defying death, and all unconsciously shape every act, and lend each wandering step to this one end, that one day, out of darkness, they shall meet, and read life's meaning in each other's eyes. By Susan Mark Spalding. So that took my breath away, and essentially it's the summary of the love story in the book Princess Zara. So we are going to find a way to use this. Now that I have what I think I'm going to need, I can pull back now and reorganize my thoughts. So I'm undecided at this moment if I want to actually do some sewing machine stitching on my pages. So instead of going ahead and binding my signatures into my hidden spine that's going to go inside the book, I'm just going to set this aside for now and think about this part later. So what I've decided to do is to narrow it down to 3 things at a time. So I want to somehow make 3 tuck spots with these postcards. And then I want to use these images somehow on a little cluster on these tuck spots. Maybe use these leaves. So that's 3, a set of 3 that I want to make. And then remember these envelope pieces. I think what I want to do with these is make the acetate window and put a pressed flower inside and then stitch around. So I'm going to make 3 of those using the back side of these long envelopes that I had. So I've already traced a window, and I just used a playing card. So just a playing card. Trace that because this is a good size window for the blooms that I have. So there's going to be 3 of those. And maybe we can put, depending on how much white space there is, maybe we can put a postage stamp in there. We'll see how that looks. And then the other 3 things that I think I want to try are these. So I was thinking I could open up the envelope so that it becomes a little folder that you can do some secret journaling. So this would be glued down to the page, and then you would open it and do your secret journaling inside. And then on the top you would have the pressed plant. So that means with these are going to have to be really sturdy, or they're going to have to be glued down really well, because I don't think I want to put a plastic over those. So we'll have to use possibly some matte medium. So that's the other 3 things I want to make. Alright, I went ahead and used just old paper from the front of a book, so it's like a blank page, and I decided I was going to reinforce the front of the envelope before we do anything. So we're going to break here because I want my glue to be completely dry on this before I try any of that watercolor dripping that I'm thinking I want to do before we put our pressed plant down. So I did that on this one. I did the same here, just an old book page, so it's got the same worn, aged paper look to it. So that's this one. This envelope here is nice and thick, so I won't need to do that with this one. Today I am back fresh, and I've started to trim down these postcards. And the idea behind these particular pieces of ephemera is that the story, as I said, is about 2 lovers, and they are separated by a very long distance. So this kind of just alludes to the idea that they possibly travel to see each other, and then that there's probably a lot of correspondence going on back and forth. So I'm using kind of my worldwide stamps so that they are writing to each other wherever they may be at the time. Next, I want to make 3 little window cards like this one. So I use those large envelope backs from yesterday, and it's just the layer of acetate, and then the pressed plant is just lightly glued to the text piece there. And that's from the Nature Notes of an Edwardian Lady, just those text pages that she has in her books. So I am just going to go ahead and I'm going to trim out my windows, and then I'm going to go in the order that I made this one, which is text, pressed plant, acetate, and then stitching. So here they are. This is the honeysuckle, and I might be able to add the word here or a postage stamp or something. Here's the fuchsia, and I added the Tim Holtz alphabet washi there. And if you notice, I only put a drop when I'm putting the acetate over top my flowers. I often just put a drop of Fabri-Tac right at the center of the bloom, or, you know, spread out a little bit, because the acetate also creates a little bit of static, so you've got that to help it hold the bloom down. So there's that one. And then these 3 little potentilla blooms, and as I was gluing this one of the petals came off, but that's just how nature works. So we've got 3 little blooms in that one, and again I can maybe add some embellishments to this card later. Yesterday when we left at these, I was thinking they were going to be little folders inside the journal, but when I got up this morning I decided I didn't want that anymore. I just wanted these to be tags. And so they're quite sturdy because I had already added a piece of book page inside to reinforce the envelope. So what I did off camera already is I've stitched these shut. So each of these now has some stitching around the edges. And then I wanted to test out my matte medium just to see how well it would go with the inks on the envelope, especially this one because it does look like it would be an older ink. I considered using a clear gesso on here first and doing all that, but you know, at some point when you're creating a journal, you have to kind of manage your time and decide what's gonna be worth spending time on. So I just decided I was going to be very careful and put my matte medium just on the back of each of the leaves and just press it down carefully. So I did that a few hours ago, and it has been sitting under a bag of orzo. And it has pressed nicely, and it's quite glued down. So this is a trick I learned years ago in a mixed media class to put weight on your pieces after you glue them. You can use a bag of rice or barley or whatever you have. And so what that does is the rice goes into the nooks and crannies of whatever you're pressing down that has dimension. Instead of putting it in a flat book, this works a lot better. So that's just a little trick I learned a long time ago. So what I'm using is the Liquitex matte medium, and it's the fluid medium, so it's quite fluid, which is perfect for this kind of work. My brush is quite small, it's flat, and I'm really not pressing down a lot. I'm basically just dabbing. Up here where the one leaf is overlapped on the other, I'm trying to get under there so that it does have some adhesion. And then I'm going to try and get a little bit on the stem. This gets harder to do when you're using some very thin flower petals. I find it a lot easier on leaves because they are thicker. I'm going to go set this one aside with a piece of deli paper or wax paper on top, and then my bag of orzo. Now I have at times gone back over the top of the plant to protect it and seal it even more, but I only do that when the background is blank. And then sometimes if the leaves are a little bit more stubborn, you have to go back in and add a little bit more glue. And I have done that, and I've just used Fabri-Tac just for those final touches. So now I'd like to figure out where all that's going to go in the journal. And to do that, I'm going to bind it now. Sometimes I think, okay, this time for sure I'm going to go in and do some stitching right on the pages before I bind the book. And I almost never do that. It's just my process. I prefer to just have a bound book and then to go back in and do some faux stitching if I have to on separate pieces of paper that I add in afterwards. There is a tutorial on my channel where I go over every step of the hidden spine using the Craftex. So I'm going to leave a link under this video so that you can go watch that if you've never done this technique before. When I glue the text block into the hardcover, I just put glue on the two flaps of the hidden spine. In the early days of doing hidden spines, I would put glue on the spine itself inside the cover, but once in a while I would get problems with the cracking noise and things because of the materials that the spine was made of. So I just stopped doing that at one point, and there's really no need for that much glue. It's okay, it's just, that's just my preference at this point. So what I usually do is I put glue on one flap and I secure that down until it's fairly dry, and then I come back and I do the second flap. So I don't do them both at the same time. So before I put it in, I've added some lace, just a little piece there and then on the bottom, so that when you look at the book from this side, there's just a little bit of an embellishment there. And this is usually at the point where I put in a ribbon bookmark, but I've decided, because I'm using the Stamperia paper that has those beautiful Botanical bookmarks in there, I've decided I'm just going to make a separate bookmark to go with the book. So, but this would be the stage where I glue my ribbon bookmark at the top, and then once the text block is glued in, then the bookmark comes down inside the book itself. So again, this was just a reinforcement piece of Tyvek, and it's held my spine together while I fiddled and played with my cover. Fabri-Tac is what I've been using to attach my hidden spines. And I want to point out, if you've noticed when I do videos, I take the cap off, I use it, and then I always put the cap on right away. So if you've noticed that I do that in videos, the reason is that I've had problems with the Fabri-Tac kind of just bubbling over as soon as I put the bottle back upright. I don't know if that happens to you, if it's just the climate here, the temperature. That's why you see me put the cap back on every time I use the glue. Now when I'm doing this, I obviously line up my top and bottom so that it's the same distance from the top and bottom, and then I make sure that my spine is fitting inside here, centered. And then what I do is, when I'm putting pressure down on it, I lean it up against something on this side. What I've got for the book to lean on is just a box of markers. And then on this side I've got some weights. Here I've got a couple of books. So I'm just going to put these down on the piece of craft text. So the end papers are in, and there's a little bit of the old tape on there. And then I did some thumb notches on the two bags that I have in here. And I also distressed, I used the little Tim Holtz distressor on the edge. So we'll put in these first. And then late last night, I ended up choosing 3 of these small shaped embellishments from the Stamperia paper pad, and I made these. So that's just a die cut stem there and some lace and a little sari applique. So that's going to be a tuck spot that goes at the top of a page, and they'll be peeking out the top. So I've got that oval one, and then I used a tag shaped one, and I just had scraps of lace and stuff in a basket beside me, so I used that. And then this one is a larger round one, and all the backs have pattern on them, so from the top of the book, if you look from the back, you'll see pattern. So that's just a little piece of lace there and some silk ribbon and just stapled on. So I'm going to be putting the first one here, and like I said, it's going to be an angled tuck spot. So when we glue it down, that's what it's going to look like. These I'm just going to have peeking out about a ½ inch from the top. And I was thinking of staggering them where one is here and then the other one is in the middle and then the other one is here. But they're just very symmetrical shapes, so I think they just look better centered. And it actually looks nice from the top, so let's do that. I'm going to clip my pages while I work so that it creates a bit of weight on them. That's what happens with your chunky journals. This is going to go on the front inside cover like that. It's the one with the pretty leaf pattern on the inside. So I've opened it up, and then the summary that was at the front of the book, I was going to use the original, and then I thought maybe on vellum would look cool. So I scanned it and printed it, and then I have my Decolled Edge ruler. So I cut it down to the same size, and then so maybe like that. And then when you open it, you have the vellum. I'm just going to staple that on the inside of here, just at the top. And this looks like it's a peony, and I have this small stem from a peony in my backyard. I'm just going to Fabri-Tac that right there. And it mimics the images on some of these pages. Where I have them on the corners of the digital. And then I'm going to just put a tiny little Tim Holtz paper clip on this to keep it closed. I want the journal to have a bit of a boho feel because of the traveling aspect of the story from the cover. So I think the best place to put this gorgeous larger applique that I have is over here. I'm just going to carefully put Fabri-Tac on the back of that and add it on the corner. These are a few more things I want to add in. So I've got these page edge little collages I want to make, just with packing paper in a dark green and a brown color, and just a postage stamp. And we'll see how maybe a wax seal looks with them. I'm not sure on that part yet. We'll see once they're glued down. There were 3 images in my copy of the book, so when I scanned the summary or the text page, I also scanned the images, printed them on vellum as well, and added some tape. So I want to add those in. And then I picked 3 Stamperia larger postcards to put in, and I'm just embellishing them with a postage stamp because they really don't need help at all. I decided what I wanted to do with the pink sheer hanky. So what I did is I cut just a quarter of it, and I'm going to fold it to make it look like a full hanky. And I'm going to tuck it into this little tuck spot I just made. It's just some ribbon with a little bit of heart lace trim. And I have a button card that I like for the green, and it's a bit masculine. And I also have a couple of golden masculine buttons, but they don't come from this card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mimic this button card, because I have the little clamps or clips, whatever these are. I have them for the two golden buttons. So I'm going to mimic that look on this button card. I put them side by side. My punch doesn't really reach very far anyway, and it also allows them to tuck into the belly band better. So I'm going to fold this to look like an actual hanky. So this could be like a souvenir for her of the hanky that she had on her when they met. This is just to represent the kind of attire he may have been wearing. And now we just tuck them into the back like that. And I may add a ribbon or something, or some twine to the button card. For the locket, it took me a while to find a couple of photos. It's not easy to find, first of all, images that resemble the people from the story based on the illustrations, and also to find the right size. So what ended up happening was I had an old photo, it's a wedding photo of these two, and I blew it up just a little so that I could print it the right size and then punch it out with my circle punch. These, I think I want to have a couple of things tucked in. So I'm going to use a book page and one of the postcards that I just kept plain. I didn't want to add too many dimensional things. We're starting to have quite a pile of things, so it's going to be chunky enough as it is. So I just added some tape on these. So maybe one of these can go in. The vellum images are just going to go at the beginning of each signature. I ended up adding the name of the plant on my typewriter also. Now I just have this left, which is the coin envelope printable with the 3 smaller tags in there. I tied them together, they're just blank. So maybe we can just stick this at the front of the journal somewhere. Like that, so the flap is on this side. So this is what I ended up doing for the bookmark. There's just an eyelet on there. The ribbon is about the length of the tag, just so that it's kind of wispy and hanging, and just a little bit of lace on the bottom. So that can be used throughout the journal. And maybe we can just put it in the back here with the button card and the hanky. All that's left to do is to add my closure, and I want to show you what I ended up doing with the locket. So I added crackle accents on the photos, and I attached it to an old pearl necklace that I had, and I changed out the clasp on it. I had this one that's heart-shaped, so I switched that out. I think that looks really good, and the crackle on there just makes this look even older. In the end, I decided I'm going to use this gorgeous piece of cream-colored lace for the closure, and I'm going to attach this little cameo brooch to it. It's lightly pink, and the pearls go with the pearl necklace, and there's a little bit of bling there. I hope you enjoyed a peek inside this project. Hit the like button if you did. Also, if you'd like extra content from me, such as video series and digitals, I'll leave a link to my Patreon below. See you next time.